Welcome boys to another YouTube video. You're joining me in a lovely field in a little bench in the middle of nowhere, and I wanted to talk to you guys about mechanical trading versus discretionary trading, because this is a very big thing, and I trade both mechanically and discretionarily, if that's even a word. And I'm going to talk you through basically the pros and cons of everything as someone who actually trades both. It's quite rare that you see someone that actually trades both and can kind of weigh in on it. So I've got two mechanical models and one discretionary model. And the critical thing with this, I'm going to get straight to the point, not going to waste your time, is they both have pretty much the same return over the year. And in terms of win rate, it's broadly similar. In terms of everything else, it's pretty much the same. And that's what a lot of people don't realize, is a lot of people love to pick a side and then shit on the other side. A lot of people, mechanical day trading, they say, oh, discretion is a myth, it's not a real thing. Everything is just probability with mech. And discretionary guys say, oh, there's no way mech works, because if it did work, then someone would create a bot and everything. You know what I mean? There's valid arguments on both sides. Now, the main thing here is the difference in psychology, because as much as mech traders love to say that psychology isn't a thing, it 100% is a thing. And as a mech trader, I know firsthand psychology can definitely be really difficult. Now, the main thing with this is what you blame when things go wrong, right? Because a lot of the time, the psychology issues come from your losses and how you don't deal with them. No one has psychology issues when they're winning, of course not, right? It's only when you're losing. Now, with mech traders, when they're losing, the only thing you can blame is the strategy, is the system, right? There's literally nothing else you can blame. Maybe you can blame market conditions, but for the most part, it is the strategy. And this is where the psychology impacts come in, because as a mech trader, your edge in the market is your belief in your system. Now, what I mean by that is you have presumably done the backtesting and done the data collection to know that your strategy is profitable over a long enough time period. That is your edge, is your belief in that system. As soon as you start losing belief, as soon as you start doubting things, that is where everything starts tumbling when it comes to your psychology. Now, discretionary traders are a little bit different, because their edge is kind of themselves, if that makes sense. So their bias, their entry, all of that kind of comes from previous market experience, which is not the same for mechanical day trading. And it's a little bit harder to backtest discretion. I used to think you couldn't backtest it until I started backtesting it myself, and I realized that if you do it correctly, you can backtest discretion. It's just definitely a lot harder, and it takes a lot longer than mech data. But both sides of this are very similar, and I know some very profitable discretionary traders, and I know some very profitable mechanical traders. And the reason that I do both, and I'm sure I'm going to do another video, is onto my full back-end system on how I do this, is I have times where the mech is winning, but the discretion is losing, and I have vice versa. And this is exactly why I have this. I have a specific back-end system that I'm sure I'll do a video on, onto how I split up my probabilities, my funding, my allocation of accounts. Literally everything is split up so that when one is losing, another one is probably winning. Now, it's quite unlikely that everything is going to lose at the same time. I've had it once in the whole data collection that I've looked at, where everything is lost at the same time, and that was about a 2-week long period, which I haven't gone through in real time, but I can imagine it's going to be pretty brutal in real time. But for the most part, everything is kind of winning on its own, and everything does align at one point and everything wins, which is brilliant. But the reason I can do that is because I can balance the two. Now, I don't think you could have more than one discretionary strategy. I think discretion requires a lot more thought, obviously, than mech does. The whole point of mech is it's just kind of brain dead. You just kind of apply it, and that's pretty much it. And with mech, you can have multiple mech strategies. So I trade T&B, tap and barrel hybrid, tap and barrel mech London, and I also have my own continuation and my own reversal strategy that is fully mechanical. And then I have this discretionary model as well that I'm kind of in the process of learning the discretion, because it's definitely a lot harder than mech. It's definitely a massive learning curve, but it's something that I've seen pretty good results with so far. I've had a couple of payouts from it. It's definitely been pretty good, and the win rate is so much higher for me. And that might be because I also incorporate break-evens into my discretionary, where I don't do that on my mech. But for whatever reason, the win rate is a lot higher. My win rate's 60 to 70% on discretion, whereas my win rate is kind of 40% on the mech. And obviously I trade a lot higher risk to reward on the mech, so then maybe that balances it out. But either way, I think that you should, I don't want to say you should try both, but I think you'd be surprised at what the other side can have in store. Because when I first started, I was a full-on mech guy. I was like, there's no way discretion works at all. And then I started trading it, and I started realizing that it's kind of a bit refreshing to actually have a thought in the market. Because when you're following the mech stuff, it's when it loses, you start doubting the model, etc. But with the discretionary stuff, it's almost like you're learning trading all over again, because it gives you something to something to learn, something to work towards. And as I'm sure I've documented all over, less so on YouTube, but a lot more on TikTok and Instagram, is I love learning new things. I love putting myself out of my comfort zone, learning new things. So yeah, that's definitely a good thing to do. And yeah, I think I'm probably gonna leave this video here. I think that was like a good enough summary of mech and discretion, with a little bit of waffle about my back-end system in there. But yeah, hopefully you guys found that useful, or at least entertaining, and I will see you guys in the next video.